Welcome to day 446 of our DSO journey. I'm Ed Krasenstein here with my twin brother Brian. And remember, these videos are being sponsored by NFT Tech. They are an investor in DSOFi. So yesterday, Bill Gates had some really interesting comments to make about the broader NFT market and what's been going on with NFTs. What do you want to touch a little bit on that, Brian, and talk about what your thoughts are on what he had to say?
Yeah, he was in a discussion. I think it was TechCrunch, a TechCrunch conference, and he was asked about crypto, NFTs in general, and he had an interesting point of view, one that probably won't make too many NFT fans too happy. But he said that he's not long or short crypto, so he's not trying to influence anything here. But he said that NFTs are 100% based on the greater fool theory, which basically says that as long as somebody's willing to pay more money than you bought it for, the price of that asset will keep rising. And that a lot of people buying NFTs bought them expecting the price to keep going up because there's going to be a greater fool willing to pay more money than they are. Um, as somebody that runs NFTZ.me, NFT marketplace that we're building, it might surprise you that I kind of agree with him to some extent. And I'll kind of explain. I think that we were in a bubble for sure. We were definitely in an NFT bubble. I think that's clear as day right now. You had projects popping up left and right on multiple chains. You had projects popping up that were generated by computers, and they didn't really offer any utility or any community, and they were selling for a lot of money just because they were cool. And I think that it was getting to a dangerous point. I think as you move forward, there's going to be thousands and thousands of NFT collections popping up, and there's not going to be enough money chasing these collections. So I think a majority of them are going to end up being near worthless unless you have something else besides that NFT that you're getting. And when I say NFT, I mean the piece of the gift that's associated with the NFT. And and what I think we see is that the NFTs that have a really strong community have maybe there's access gated communities, maybe there's certain utilities that you might get access to certain parties or certain people. That type of NFT I think will persevere, and in the long run they will hold value, but there needs to be a really strong community, really strong utility associated with it. It can't just be a piece of art by a no-name artist that sells for thousands of dollars and will continue to go up in value for the foreseeable future. That's not how it works. So I think that Bill Gates is kind of right in that respect, but I think that his statement's lacking some things, and that's NFTs as a technology, non-fungible tokens. The technology is what's going to expand and explode with interest and with innovative ideas around them. It's not just gifts. Within the art space, it's going to be projects, like I said, that offer utility and community. But if you fast forward like 4 or 5 years from now, I think art's merely going to be a small segment of the entire NFT space. I think virtual assets, think about virtual reality and think about 3D assets within virtual reality that you can swap in between different metaverses. Stuff like that's really going to take off. And I think the NFT technology, this non-fungible token technology, can really play a crucial role in identifying who owns what asset in those virtual worlds. I think certificates of authenticity are going to be big, not just for autographs or sports memorabilia like we're used to, but for everything. For pretty much any item you buy, there's going to be this certificate that you can track back the history of who owned it, what wallets purchased it, resold it, and all of that. And I think that there's going to be this fundamental shift in the way we sort of track virtual objects as well as physical objects, and those are going to kind of merge. And there's going to be a place for NFTs, definitely, and there's going to be a place for NFT marketplaces like NFTZ.me, and that's what we're trying to build for.
Well, so I mean, I don't know if I see it so much as, NFTs being used for physical goods, at least not in the near future. I think it's going to be mostly for digital goods, but I think the market for digital goods is going to be huge. You look at virtual reality, you look at the metaverse, you look at gaming. And I think these are, you look at movies even. And I think these are the areas where NFTs are going to move to next. You know, like I think once we break out of this down cycle, I think we're going to see a lot more 3D creations of NFTs. And I think we're going to see a lot more creations for games and we're going to see gaming companies getting into minting NFTs, and people can buy in-game NFTs. And maybe you don't want to, I mean, you said it's not going to be art, but maybe that is art, you know, like it's still
Yeah.
art. You know, if somebody creates, let's say, a car that you can drive in the metaverse, I mean, that's
But
still
there's
art. You're,
utility, so there's utility associated with that, as well as a community, because you're using that NFT within this communal space. So
yeah,
yeah, I think you could consider that art.
so I mean, and I don't think we're gonna see, you know, I don't believe that 2D artwork NFTs are just gonna vanish. I think
No.
that's gonna be something that artists, like really good artists, like people like Beeple, are still gonna make tons of money off of selling NFTs, and other really great artists. But I think some of these more generative projects that, you know, really, it's not really art, at least not very good art, and it doesn't take a ton of time to create. I think some of these will, you know, I think that's going to kind of slow down. And just some of the older projects like the Bored Ape Yacht Clubs, like CryptoPunks, they'll hold value just because they were some of the first. And, you know, it's like the Mickey Mantle rookie card. It's like, you know, the very first uh, NFTs, the first huge series, the ones that had the greatest utility back in the day. You know, like Bored Ape Yacht Clubs has utility. It might not be the utility that we'll eventually see in the virtual world or in metaverses or in gaming, but it still has utility. But keep an eye on 3D, keep an eye on the metaverse, and keep an eye on gaming slash movies. I think NFTs are going to have the largest impact there next. Will we see real estate contracts? Will we see, you know, car leases? Will we see those types of things be utilizing NFTs in the future? Maybe. I don't know. Like, you know, contracts work pretty good. You know, contracts are pretty good for leases. Contracts are pretty good for uh, real estate sales. I don't know if you actually need to hold an NFT that says you're the owner of the home you live in. Uh,
So I think if you go out 4 or 5 years, I just want to touch on a few things. If you go out 4 or 5 years from now, I do think that you don't necessarily need the NFT just to prove that you are the owner, but more so to have this history of ownership that's all in the blockchain. It can't be changed. I think stuff like that, it will be interesting. It will just give this history of every asset, not every asset. I'm sure you're not going to be putting an NFT associated with a pickle you buy at the store, but I think a lot of assets could. And I also want to clarify, I don't think at all that NFT art is fading away. I think it's gonna pick back up, and I also think that as we head forward, it's gonna be even more vibrant than before. But I think that a lot of these like non-artists are probably going to be pushed out, and the real artists, maybe not even the generative ones. I think the people that are actually creating art, one-of-one art, and then selling them via NFTs, I think that's going to be a big market, and people are going to create names for themselves. The generative stuff, I think it's all going to be reliant on community and utility.
yeah, no, I agree. So let's move on. There's a big federal funds rate decision coming today. You know, that we're trying to curtail inflation, or at least the Fed is trying to lower inflation. And by doing that, they want to raise rates, because when you raise rates, there's less investment that takes place, and it tends to bring inflation down. So they're expecting between a 75 and 100 point basis increase, which is 0.75 to 1% interest rate increase. And 1%, that's pretty big. I mean, that's like saying, okay, we're just doing this, getting it over with. What do you think is going to happen? Is it going to be 0.75? Will it be zero point 0.5? Will it be 1? What's your
I think
prediction?
it's probably going to be 0.75. It's going to be the largest rate increase, I think, in over 28 years. It could be 1%, but I don't think they're going to go that high. And what happens is when you increase rates, people tend to save money and invest less and buy less. And what that does is it slows the economy down. And when the economy slows down, inflation should dip as well, since there's not as much demand and the demand supply curve moves down and to the left. So we'll see. I think that the US stock markets this morning are pricing in a 0.75% uh, rate raise. I think if it's more than that, I don't know, it would be positive or negative. I think right now the markets are kind of
Just
looking
want
at
something
higher
to get
rates
done.
as
I think they
positive.
just want, yeah, I feel like, up until this point, every rate increase, if it was above what was predicted, the stocks would plunge, crypto would plunge. But I kind of feel like the market just wants a solution, and they feel like a
Clarity.
large rate
Yeah.
increase will just get it over with, get it over with in one big hammer slam, and then we can kind of move on. Whether that happens or not, who knows? Uh, what I think is interesting is the way Bitcoin and cryptos have just been following the NASDAQ. And, previously in years past, if you were in the crypto space, 5 years ago, even longer than that, you would know that as inflation rose, people were like, okay, let's get into crypto because at least Bitcoin. Let's get into Bitcoin because Bitcoin is inflation proof. But now, as inflation rises, it's not. It's going along with the stock market, and people are just predicting that inflation means that the Fed's going to increase rates, which means there's going to be less people investing in Bitcoin. But ultimately, what Bitcoin was meant for was to kind of be a way around inflation, a way to avoid being affected by inflation. So it's interesting how kind of the tables have kind of turned a little bit on how Bitcoin reacts.
Yeah, like I think that it's kind of like this sell the news type event where when there's people for the last couple of years when people say, "Oh, inflation's coming down the line," that's when people buy Bitcoin. Oh, I'm getting excited about Bitcoin because there's going to be inflation. But then when the inflation actually hits, everybody's like, "Oh no, I'm going to sell my Bitcoin because nobody's going to be buying Bitcoin because rates are going to rise." So it's an interesting dynamic. I think in the long run, things will kind of pan out for Bitcoin. I think that right now we're just the uncertainty is what's driving this drop in both the U.S. stock markets, the global stock markets, and the crypto markets.
I mean, like if you look at Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin should go up as inflation goes up, just
Yeah.
because it's anti-inflationary, where the U.S. dollars, the value is going down as inflation goes up. Bitcoin's the value is staying the same. So compared to the U.S. dollar, Bitcoin should be going up as inflation goes up. But like you said, I think it's more like a sell the news. This is what's happening. This is so I'm going to be prepared. More like
Yeah.
that type of scenario. I think because there's more large investors involved than there were years past. I think there's a little bit of a different scenario playing out. A little bit of the market's reacting differently because there's so much big money involved in crypto right now.
Yeah, just look at it like say there's rumors started to swirl, which they have kind of begun to swirl that Apple might build a car. But say these rumors got really intense that in 3 years Apple was going to launch a car, and we started seeing leaks of some of the diagrams within the car's schematics and all of that, and people started getting really excited. The stock keeps going up and up and up because, oh, Apple's going to sell cars, they're going to make so much profit. And then when that car is launched, kind of deflates the balloon because there's not anything you look forward to anymore. So I think that's the same thing with inflation and Bitcoin.
Yeah, people want to, be early. People want to be the ones who say, "Oh, I got in before the Apple car came," not, "Oh, I got in after the Apple car came," and then, what's there to look forward to in the future.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree there. So Bitcoin did hit a low last night for, I don't know, hasn't been this low. I don't even know how long, but it dropped down to $20,111. Thankfully for those who hold Bitcoin, it rebounded, and it's sitting at 21,400 right now. It's going to be interesting to see if it can hold that $20,000 mark. It's both a support point based on previous trading, and it's also a psychological support. I think, like if it drops below 20 though, who knows what could happen? Where's
Yeah,
the bottom
and
at?
I'll just answer your question. The last time I was that low was actually around the middle of December of 2020, so about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, so let's move on to some DSO and DAODAO stuff. Yesterday, Zian Mead pointed out some major DAODAO announcements. He was reading the DAODAO Discord where Emulsified made a post essentially talking about what is coming up for DAODAO. He said there's several things to look forward to, and I'll list a few of them. ERC20 bridge on DSO. It's going to enable USDC backed treasuries for off ramps to US dollars. So if you create a DAO on DAODAO, you're going to be able to have USDC backed treasuries. So all that money is held in USDC, which makes it super easy to off ramp into US dollars. If you need to use US dollars to buy something that the DAO wants, it will be super simple. There's going to be MetaMask integration. We've talked about this extensively in previous shows. It's going to allow for users to sign up on DAODAO using their MetaMask, which is going to be huge for onboarding Ethereum people, make it super easy for Ethereum users to create DAOs, to invest in DAOs on DAODAO. So I think that's something to really look forward to. There's going to be NFTs on DAODAO, which is interesting because this kind of opens the door for NFT communities to launch DAOs. And these NFT communities who come onto DAODAO, launch a DAO, and also have their NFTs displayed on DAODAO. It's going to be interesting to see if this is integrated with Ethereum, Solana, or if it's just DSO NFTs. I think, it'll be beneficial if it's Ethereum and Solana as well as Tezos and all the other chains as well. But to start off, I don't know, it might just be DSO NFTs. Group chats. There's going to be group chats by DSO Messenger. They're going to enable DAO coin gated encrypted group chats. So say you're in a DAO and say there's 1,000 other people in that DAO and you hold DAO coins. That DAO could have a gated chat where only members of that DAO can participate in this encrypted on-chain group chat. Or maybe they want to say if you hold 20 DAO tokens, you can participate in this encrypted group chat. So that's
I think that's big. I think that's big because it creates that FOMO. Like I don't want to miss out. I want to get in. I want to see what's happening in this gated community, and stuff like that is what kind of drives excitement for, I know, NFTs, and I'm guessing for DAOs as well. People that would want to jump into that DAO because they can get access to certain people. Maybe somebody famous will launch a DAO, and if you own the DAO coin, you have access to that person. Stuff like that. It's definitely something that can drive things.
Yeah, and PokeDAO. So Natter's talked a lot about PokeDAO. It's going to be the DAO that he launches, that the DAODAO community launches, that will try and bring some big Pokemon collectors, people who are, I guess, stars within the Pokemon community, into the DAO. And then the DAO is going to try and raise funding to buy this huge Pokemon collection, which ultimately they will burn the cards of and create NFTs of. That's the idea right now. But when it comes down to it, the DAO is going to be the one to decide what they actually do. But it could be interesting. It's going to be like the first collective DAO on DAODAO, and we'll see.
And I saw that it looks like they're trying to work with people within the Pokemon community to get them on board and get them involved in this. So I think this is going to be a test. Like, can they start working with people in various communities to create DAOs around those communities? And how easy is it going to be? I think PokeDAO will be the first major test of that.
It has potential to really go viral, but we'll have to wait and see. They also released their growth strategy document. Anybody can read this document. It's actually, I linked to it above this video on DSO, below it on YouTube. Check it out. The growth strategy doc talks about their mission. It talks about their vision. It talks about what they plan to do. Their vision is empower the world's most ambitious founders and teams to pursue big ideas with their community. So that's out. They plan on keeping really detailed metrics and analytics to measure what is succeeding in what they're trying to do and what is not succeeding in what they're trying to do. They're going to be experimenting with marketing and be experimenting with growth strategies, and they're going to keep these metrics so that they can see what's working and then duplicate it again if it's really working well, and kind of throw out some of the stuff that's not working. Growth marketing will involve building brand awareness and strategic acquisitions. So it seems like the following people who are part of DAODAO/DSO are involved in the growth marketing and pushing DAODAO to its brinks, I guess you could say. And those are, of course, Natter, Erica Ishaniz. She starts working for DSO, I believe it's June 27th. Jacob Van, Mossified, Invest in Digital. That's Ash. There's also Abe, and I don't know Abe's DSO username. And then there's two individuals, Kathleen and Tin, who are contractors. So it appears they're just paying some individuals as contractors to kind of help push DAO forward. What I found interesting, and I think this is a really good idea, is that they plan on attending and speaking at DAO events and other relevant events. And Ed Mossified's actually speaking at DAO Planet in New York City. I think it's June 24th to June 25th. He'll be speaking there. And then Erica is going to be speaking at DAO NYC, which is also later this month. So that should be awesome to get speakers at these huge DAO conventions talking about DAO and talking about what DAO creators can do to come on board. They also plan to hold recurrent Twitter Spaces events. I believe that's Ed and Erica, and they plan to partner with DAO directories. There's about a dozen of them, I think 11, and they plan to get DAOs listed in these directories.
Yeah, just a couple things, and I think number one, the DAO community really isn't that big yet. So I mean, you said these huge DAO events, and they are going to be big for DAO events, but I think the fact that we're so early and that they can be at these events, a couple of them can be at these events, trying to get people to move on to DAO. I think that's powerful, and I think that should work pretty well since there really aren't any alternatives. It's kind of like a no-brainer to choose DAO right now in my mind. And this roadmap, if you want to say, or their plan of action, their growth marketing strategy that they released, I'm super impressed here. I mean, you got to check out this document. I think they pretty much think of everything. They have certain people segmented off into different groups who work on different parts of these different projects, and they have a plan. And I think that's something they probably didn't have when they launched BitClout back last March. So I'm confident that at least they're going to be firing all cylinders. Whether that translates into high growth for DAO or not immediately, I don't know. But at least they're trying, and at least if it's going to work, we're not leaving anything on the table. If it's possible that DAO becomes the next big thing, it's going to happen because of what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think there's a lot of potential there, especially if once we emerge from this crypto winter.
Yeah.
So yesterday on our show, we talked about Zirkles, and we said that, when you make a long form post, which on Zirkles, which is like the medium built on the DSO blockchain, you can only have an excerpt of your text on the blockchain, and the rest of the article is off chain, just on the Zirkles servers. Tony Lewis of Zirkles actually replied to our video yesterday, and he said that this actually isn't correct. Blog owners on Zirkles can in fact post their entire post / article on chain. The only problem is that the DSO blockchain has transaction limits, and when a post reaches a certain amount of character count, those posts will not be able to entirely be on chain. There is extra data, which we mentioned yesterday, but extra data also has these transaction limits on them. So character length plays a role. I don't know what the limits are, but I think, if you write a really long post, you're probably going to have some issues. So that's why Zirkles by default is showing the excerpt. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, what they said makes sense, and they're doing a great job addressing issues, addressing the community. So thanks, guys. So Daniel Kemp, he's pondering a few things related to his Cloutpunk NFT series. Cloutpunk, of course, is probably one of the most popular, most recognizable DSO NFT series. But he's wondering if he should possibly cut the Cloutpunk 10K series short due to a lack of activity. He says that there's not much buying going on. Obviously, I think the NFT community in general is at a slow portion of where they've been. uh, DSO in particular. And he said he's considering making some super rare clout punks, and he's asking for some feedback. I don't know what you think of that. Like, I think that what's best for the collectors might be that he just pauses the series and waits for things to pick up, provided they do pick up. Uh, I think creating super rare ones might sort of devalue the rarer ones earlier in the series.
Well, I don't know if he meant create new rare ones. I think what he meant was
A whole
that, if he
other.
cuts it short now, some of them will be super rare just
Oh,
because he hasn't minted enough.
yeah, yeah. I mean that would make sense. I mean he could close the series out altogether, which wouldn't be a terrible idea, or he could pause it. I think if he was considering uh just making some super rare ones and then closing it off, I think that could be kind of uh detrimental to some of the early buyers of Cloud Punk that own some rare ones already.
Yeah, I actually replied to him and I said, it might be better to make this decision when we're not in a crypto winter. But ultimately, I think it's his decision. He spent so much time creating these and investing his time and energy into creating these. If he wants to move on to something else, maybe he wants to move on to NFTs on other chains, I think that's up to him to decide.
Right.
Uh, I think closing it out, I don't think that would really hurt the series. But, you never know with these things. Like, everything's new within the NFT space.
Yeah, I mean, if you close it out, then there's just less out there. So, I mean, if the series does kind of hold value and maybe later down the road, it's seen as the first generative series on DSO, and you only have 5,000 instead of 10,000. Sorry, I don't know the total numbers out
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
It would, I would think it would add value to the ones that are out there.
Yeah. So moving on, there's apparently, according to Tyne, there's some syncing issues. He said he believes that one of the nodes used to load balance node.deso.org is out of sync. And Sean Slater replied, and he said he essentially confirmed what Tyne is saying. I don't know all the details. There definitely seems to be a few minor issues going on. We'll have to keep an eye on this.
Yeah, clearly, there's a few issues, but hopefully they get it under control pretty soon.
So, what were the top hashtags from the last 24 hours, Brian?
Yeah, thanks to Open Prosper, the top hashtags were DSO, NFT, crypto, Bitcoin, and Web3. So all ones we've seen before, I believe. Nothing too exciting. It's definitely a lot of talk of what's happening in the crypto space right now, and I can understand why.
How about the top diamonded creators on DSO in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, thanks to Alton Base for this list. The top diamond creators were Now and Then, followed by us, Krasenstein, followed by Happy Rabbit, Tyne, Natter, Designsta, Luis and Lucy, of course, Lil Lover, McMarsh, The Junkyard Waltz, and Mario Nawfall.
Congratulations to all of you who earned diamonds. And I think that's all the news we have to discuss today. Tomorrow's going to be an interesting day, and we'll talk about the Fed rate and other things tomorrow. But everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.